Hello, and welcome back to our Alice and Bob series. In the previous episode, we helped Alice, the scientist, get access to data sent from the lab equipment to the cloud, and helped Bob, the data engineer, ensure that data remains traceable and accessible throughout the whole pipeline. But there are other challenges that they come across. In research, having metadata that provides information about the data is just as important as having the data itself. Metadata helps with understanding the data and provides a useful way of categorizing and filtering data by certain parameters. For example, by reagents used in the experiments when troubleshooting the problems. Typically, Bob would create a special form for metadata about the experiment, and he would ask Alice to fill it in. But there are two issues associated with that. First, there are usually lots of experimental details, and sometimes hundreds of samples, so it's very time-consuming. Second, metadata forms often have to be changed. It usually takes a few days to update databases for the IT team, causing further delays. To make life easier for both sides, we've added some automations to both create forms and fill them in. Let's have a look. Creating metadata forms in VectorCat is really easy. We have a metadata tab where you can create and review forms. Let's make a new one from scratch. Of course, you can build it manually. But we've thought it would be convenient to automate it and build a form by simply providing requirements. We give the instructions to create a metadata form for the next generation sequencing experiment and describe what the form should contain, such as information about the project and the lab, information about the samples, libraries, and so on. I've written down the instructions in advance to save us time now. We input the instructions and send our request. AI is building the form and is explaining its contents. Now we can check the form and edit it if we want. And what is really cool is that the AI agent even suggests relevant types of the fields, like a calendar widget for the date of the experiment. Let's say we're happy with the form. Assign it a name and save it. Now let's find some assets related to sequencing from a previous experiment. For example, information about the sequencing quality displayed in a dashboard in Power BI. And let's use the newly created form to provide metadata to this dashboard. This is the form we've just created. Of course, we can fill it in manually, but let's use AI to make our work faster. AI is filling in the form, and here it is. Of course, some information may be missing or incorrect, but we can always edit it as we like. How does this work? In our previous video, we've shown data maps that contain information about the workflow. We have reused them to collect contextual information for the AI. The AI agent goes and checks the neighbors nearest to our data asset and retrieves relevant information from them. It fills in the fields of the form to save time for researchers, so they can just validate the results and save the output. Finally, this metadata becomes searchable in custom filters. In a real company setting, we usually have hundreds of similar files. We do not always remember the exact names, but only some details, like types of the samples that we have used. In this case, we can filter for sample IDs and find the sequencing data we want. This feature is also useful when you have to aggregate data by certain parameters, like reagents or instruments used in the experiment. As you can see from this example, it's possible to reduce the time needed to create or update forms and fill them in from a few days to just a few minutes.